Chapter 1: The Basement Beneath the Cornfield. 1983 Iowa, USA. The winter had become a nightmare no one could escape. Factories were closing. Farms were dying. Grocery stores stood half empty, while desperate people fought over canned beans and stale bread. Across America, families sold wedding rings to bike. Newspapers called it the Long Hunger. But in the tiny town of Black Hollow, 28-year-old Ethan Cole hid a secret so impossible that even he barely believed it. Beneath his crumbling farmhouse, under rotten wooden boards and rusted farming tools, existed a glowing steel door that should not have been there. A door to another dimension. And behind it, unlimited food. Not canned food. Not military rations. Fresh meat. Endless wheat. Golden fruit hanging from silver trees. Rivers filled with fish bigger than dogs. Mountains of rice. Warm bread that appeared every morning without anyone baking it. Ethan discovered it by accident 3 years earlier, after a tornado ripped apart his family barn. Beneath the destroyed foundation, he found strange blue stairs leading underground. At the bottom stood the glowing door, humming like a living machine. When he touched it, the world changed forever. Now, while America starved outside, Ethan secretly lived like a king. Every night, he entered the magical dimension carrying empty sacks. Every morning he returned with enough food to feed hundreds. Yet he told no one the truth. Not even his 3 wives. Claire, his first wife, was a sharp-minded former nurse, with icy blue eyes and a dangerous ability to read lies. Samantha, the second, had once been a runaway waitress from Chicago who trusted nobody except Ethan. And Rosa. Rosa was trouble. A fiery Mexican-American mechanic who smoked cigarettes behind the barn and kept a loaded shotgun near her bed. The town whispered constantly about Ethan having 3 wives under one roof. In conservative Iowa, people called him sinful, insane, or both. But when starvation arrived, judgment slowly turned into envy. Because Ethan's farm never ran out of food. Children in Black Hollow stopped looking skinny. Families who visited Ethan's farmhouse somehow always returned carrying bread or vegetables. Rumors spread fast. Dolfast. One freezing night. "You're hiding something," she said quietly. Ethan froze while cutting carrots. Yet every morning there's more food. Samantha looked up from the table nervously. Rosa slowly reached for her cigarette. Claire stepped closer. "There's something under this house, isn't there?" For the first time in years, Ethan felt real fear. Not fear of hunger. Fear of losing control. Before he could answer, a violent knock exploded against the front door. Boom! Boom! Rosa instantly grabbed her shotgun. Outside stood 6 armed men wearing black winter coats. At their center was Sheriff Dalton Reeves. But Ethan immediately noticed the rifles and the military truck behind them. Dalton's expression was cold. "We need to search your property," he announced. "For what?" Ethan asked carefully. The sheriff stared directly into Ethan's eyes. "We received reports," Dalton said slowly, "that you may be hiding government food supplies." Inside the house, silence spread like poison. Claire looked at Ethan. Samantha stopped breathing. Rosa clicked the safety off her shotgun. And beneath their feet, far below the frozen farmhouse, the magical door suddenly began glowing brighter than ever before. Then came the sound. A deep metallic roar. As if something inside the dimension had finally awakened. Chapter 2. The Thing Inside the Dimension. The roar beneath the farmhouse shook the floor hard enough to rattle dishes. From the kitchen shelves, Sheriff Dalton Reeves immediately stepped back, hand moving toward his pistol. What the hell was that? One deputy muttered. Ethan's blood turned cold. Because he knew something terrifying. The dimension had never made noise before. Not once in 3 years. Claire noticed the panic in Ethan's face instantly. "You know what that was?" she whispered. Ethan ignored her. "Old pipes," he lied quickly. "This house is falling apart." But nobody believed him. Another metallic growl echoed from underground. Louder. Longer. Like some giant machine dragging chains across steel floors. Outside, snowstorms swallowed the cornfields, while the military truck. Headlights cut through the darkness. More armed men climbed out of the vehicle. Domani. This wasn't a simple search anymore. Sheriff Dalton stepped inside the farmhouse without permission. "We're checking the property," he said. "How?" Rosa raised her shotgun directly at his chest. "You take one more step," she warned, "and this kitchen gets real messy." The deputies instantly lifted their rifles. Claire moved between them before blood exploded everywhere. "Stop," she shouted. For one dangerous second, nobody moved. Then Ethan made the biggest mistake of his life. He looked toward the basement door. Only for a second. But Dalton saw it. The sheriff smiled slowly. "Well," Dalton said quietly, "looks like we found what we came for." 2 deputies rushed toward the basement stairs. Ethan grabbed one man and slammed him into the wall. Rosa cocked the shotgun. Samantha screamed. Then, the basement door burst open by itself. A blinding blue light flooded the farmhouse. Every window shook violently. The air changed instantly, becoming warm and strangely sweet, carrying the smell of fresh bread and flowers in the middle of brutal winter. The deputies froze. Dalton stared downward in disbelief. And from beneath the house, a woman walked up the stairs. No one spoke. No one breathed. She was beautiful in a way that didn't seem human. Tall, pale skin glowing faintly blue. Long silver hair flowing almost weightlessly behind her. Strange golden symbols moved across a white dress, like living fire. But her eyes terrified Ethan most. Completely silver. Pupils. Nuimosan. The mysterious woman looked around the farmhouse slowly, almost confused. Then her gaze landed directly on Ethan. "You opened the gate," she said softly. Her voice echoed unnaturally through the room. Dalton recovered first. "Who are you?" he demanded. The woman ignored him completely. Instead, she walked closer to Ethan. "You were warned never to feed your world forever," she whispered. Ethan felt his stomach twist. "What are you talking about?" "The dimension must remain balanced." Another roar thundered from below. This time the entire farmhouse shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. Claire grabbed Ethan's arm tightly. "What is happening?" The silver-eyed woman finally looked at the others. "They already found you," she said. "That means it's too late." Suddenly, every light in the farmhouse exploded. Glass shattered everywhere. The room fell into darkness except for the blue glow coming from the basement. Then came the screams. One deputy near the stairs was suddenly dragged backward into the basement by something invisible. His rifle fired wildly. Blood sprayed across the walls. The man screaming stopped instantly. Everyone panicked. "Move," Dalton shouted. The deputies opened fire toward the basement. Bullets flashed through blue light. Then something climbed the stairs. Utch. Black. Human. It moved like smoke wrapped around bones, with glowing red eyes and claws long enough to slice through steel. Samantha collapsed in terror. Rosa fired the shotgun directly into the creature's chest. The monster barely reacted. The silver-haired woman spoke only one sentence. "The hunger has crossed over." The creature lunged forward, and Ethan realized the horrible truth. The magical dimension was never heaven. It was a prison. Chapter 3: America's Lost Secret. The creature crashed through the kitchen like a tornado of claws and black smoke. Deputies fired wildly. Bullets ripped through walls, shattered windows, and destroyed furniture, but the monster kept moving. Fast. One deputy barely had time to scream before the creature grabbed him by the face and slammed him into the ceiling hard enough to crack wood beams. Blood poured across the kitchen floor. Samantha crawled beneath the table, crying in terror. Claire dragged her away, just as the monster's claws sliced through the spot where her head had been seconds earlier. "Ethan!" Claire screamed. "Do something!" But Ethan couldn't move, because the silver-haired woman was staring directly at him. "You fed millions of pounds." From the dimension, she said calmly while chaos exploded around them. Every meal weakened the barrier. Rosa reloaded her shotgun furiously. "You could have mentioned the demon part earlier." Another blast hit the creature's chest. Still nothing. Sheriff Dalton pulled Ethan against the wall. "You're explaining everything right now," Dalton growled. Ethan finally snapped. "I didn't know," shouted. "I thought it was magic food. I thought it was helping people." The silver-haired woman shook her head slowly. "No power is free." Then suddenly the creature stopped attacking. Its glowing red eyes locked onto Ethan. The room became silent except for heavy breathing and the howl of winter wind outside. The monster tilted its head strangely, almost curious. Then it spoke. One horrible sentence. "Mori." Its voice sounded like thousands of starving people screaming together. Everyone froze. The creature pointed one claw toward the basement. "Happening!" Ethan's heart nearly stopped. The silver-haired woman stepped in front of him instantly. "If the main gate opens," she warned, "your world dies." Another roar erupted from below the farmhouse. This one was different. Not one creature. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. Dalton looked pale for the first time in his life. "What the hell is under this house?" The woman finally answered. "A feeding world." Silence. Snow blew through broken windows, while the blue light from the basement pulsed like a heartbeat. Then she explained. Decades ago, during the Cold War, a secret government experiment discovered fractures between dimensions beneath rural America. Scientists found one realm filled with endless biological matter, food beyond imagination. But they also discovered something living there. Creatures called the hungry. Beings that consumed entire civilizations. The dimension had been sealed permanently in 1961, until Ethan accidentally reopened it. Claire stared at Ethan in disbelief. "You've been bringing food from a monster world for 3 years." "I didn't know," Ethan shouted again. But deep inside, guilt crushed him, because maybe part of him had ignored the warning signs. the strange whispers underground, the distant screams sometimes echoing through the gate at night, the shadows moving between silver trees. He ignored all of it because the food kept coming, and because people stopped starving. Suddenly, headlights appeared outside the farmhouse. Dozens of them. Military vehicles surrounded the property from every direction. Soldiers flooded the snow-covered fields, carrying assault rifles and flamethrowers. Rosa looked through the broken window. "Oh, great," she muttered. "The army." A helicopter thundered overhead. Then a voice blasted through loudspeakers. "This property is now under federal control." Dalton cursed under his breath. The silver-haired woman looked disturbed for the first time. They came too early. Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, the basement exploded. The floor ripped apart violently. Blue fire erupted upward. And from the massive hole beneath the farmhouse, more red eyes appeared. Hundreds of them. The hungry were coming. Outside, soldiers began, screaming as dark creatures burst from underground across the snowy fields. Gunfire erupted everywhere. The military line collapsed within seconds. The silver-haired woman grabbed Ethan's arm hard. "You have one chance left," she said. "What chance?" Her silver eyes locked onto his. "You must enter the dimension and close the source forever." Ethan looked toward the endless darkness beneath the farmhouse, then at his terrified wives, then at the monsters rising into America, and he realized something horrifying. This apocalypse was his fault. Chapter for Inside the Endless World. The farmhouse was dying around them. Gunfire thundered outside. Soldiers screamed in the snow. Black smoke creatures ripped through military trucks like paper while helicopters circled helplessly above the burning cornfields. And beneath it all, the blue gate pulsed like the heartbeat of a monster. Ethan stared into the massive hole where his basement used to be. Wind rushed upward from the dimension below, carrying the scent of warm bread, mixed with something rotten, like death hiding beneath sweetness. "You're telling me I have to go down there?" Ethan asked. The silver-haired woman nodded. "It's the only way." Rosa grabbed Ethan's arm immediately. "No." Her voice cracked for the first time ever. "Absolutely not." Claire stepped closer too. "If he goes down there, he dies." Samantha looked terrified. "Then we all go together." Ethan turned toward them in shock. "No chance." "The hell you mean no chance?" Rosa snapped. "We're your wives, idiot." Another explosion shook the property. Outside, soldiers were losing badly. One flaming military truck flipped across the snowy road while creatures tore through screaming men. Sheriff Dalton stared through the broken window with horror. "We can't hold them," he whispered. The silver-haired woman suddenly raised her hand. The entire room froze. Literally. Frost spread across walls and shattered glass in seconds. Blue symbols glowed in the air around her. Everyone stared. "You have little time," she said calmly. "The source is awakening." Ethan frowned. "What exactly is the source?" For the first time, fear appeared in the woman's silver eyes. "The thing that creates the food." Silence hit the room like a hammer. Then Samantha whispered, "You mean the food is alive?" The woman didn't answer directly, which was somehow worse. Another deafening roar erupted from deep below the farmhouse. The sound felt enormous now, ancient and angry. Then came the voice again. Feed, ultrasonografia. The walls trembled. Blood dripped from Ethan's nose. Claire grabbed him tightly. "Don't go," she whispered. But Ethan already knew the truth. If he did nothing, millions would die. Maybe billions. He kissed Claire softly on the forehead, then Samantha, then Rosa. Rosa tried to hide tears and failed. "You better come back," she muttered. Ethan forced a weak smile. "I'll try." The silver-haired woman stepped beside the hole. "Once we enter, there may be no return." Dalton suddenly grabbed a rifle. "I'm coming too." Everyone looked shocked. "Why?" Ethan asked. Dalton stared at the battlefield outside. "Because if this gets out beyond Iowa..." He swallowed hard. America's finished. Before anyone could speak again, the ground exploded outside. A gigantic creature emerged from beneath the snow. At least 30 feet tall. Its body looked stitched together from thousands of starving human bodies, screaming endlessly inside black flesh. Soldiers opened fire instantly. The bullets did nothing. The monster smashed a tank apart with one arm. The silver-haired woman looked horrified. "The Titan!" She whispered. Then she shoved Ethan toward the glowing abyss. "Now!" "Ethan! Dalton!" And the woman jumped into the dimension just as the farmhouse collapsed behind them. For a moment, Ethan felt nothing. Gravity. Sound. Only blue light stretching endlessly in all directions. Then they landed. Ethan slowly stood up and nearly lost his mind. The dimension was infinite. An endless golden world beneath a black sky. Mountains of bread towered like cliffs. Rivers of soup flowed endlessly through glowing forests. Trees carried fruits the size of cars. But everywhere, Peopli. Millions of shadowy, human figures wandered silently across the landscape. Thin and starving, endlessly eating but never becoming full. Their hollow eyes turned toward Ethan together. The sight was horrifying. "What are they?" Dalton whispered. The silver-haired woman answered quietly. "The ones who came before your world." Suddenly the starving figures began screaming. Not in anger. In warning. Above them, the black sky started cracking open, and something enormous moved behind the cracks. Something so massive it covered the heavens themselves. Chapter 5: The God That Fed on Worlds. The sky split open like broken glass. Every starving figure across the endless dimension dropped to their knees screaming. Ethan looked upward and saw the eye, one-eyed, bigger than cities, burning red behind the cracked black heavens. The creature beyond the sky was so enormous that Ethan's mind struggled to understand its shape. Mountains trembled simply from its movement. Sheriff Dalton staggered backward. "Begad!" The silver-haired woman shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered. "God." The giant I focused directly on Ethan. Then the voice arrived. Not through air. Inside their heads. "You fed well?" Ethan collapsed to one knee instantly, blood pouring from his nose and ears. Around him, the starving shadow people screamed in agony. The woman pulled Ethan upright. "Listen carefully," she said urgently. "The source exists beneath this world. If we destroy it, the gate closes forever." Dalton looked horrified. "And if we don't?" The woman stared at the giant eye above. "It enters Earth." Suddenly the ground shook violently. The endless fields of food began rotting at terrifying speed. Bread turned black. Rivers soured. Giant fruits burst open with swarms of insects crawling inside. The illusion was finally breaking. This place was never paradise. It was bait. A feeding trap designed to lure civilizations with endless food until the creature grew strong enough to consume their world. Ethan remembered every family he fed, every child he saved from starvation, and the crushing truth nearly destroyed him. He had been feeding humanity to a monster. The eye in the sky widened. Open the final gate. Millions of starving shadows suddenly stood together. Then they started running toward Ethan. Fast! An endless army of hollow bodies rushed across the golden plain screaming with hunger. Dalton fired his rifle desperately. It barely slowed them. We're out of time. Jad, the silver-haired woman, pointed toward a massive, glowing tower rising far away across the dimension. The source is there. The four of them ran. Behind them, millions chased through collapsing fields, while the black sky continued cracking apart overhead. As they reached the tower, Ethan saw something impossible. The source was a human heart. A gigantic floating heart chained in blue light, beating slowly inside the tower. Every beat created mountains of food around the world. Every beat also fed the monster beyond the sky. Ethan stared in disbelief. What is this thing? The woman's voice trembled. The last survivor. Inside the transparent heart, Ethan could see a woman trapped within glowing, liquid, ancient, sleeping, connected to endless tubes of light. She sacrificed herself to imprison the hunger. Between dimensions, the silver-haired woman explained. But every world eventually becomes greedy. The eye above the sky roared. The tower began collapsing. Shadow creatures flooded toward them from every direction. Dalton emptied his rifle, then looked at Ethan. Do it, he said. Ethan's hands shook. Destroying the heart meant ending the food forever. Earth would starve again. But if he failed, humanity would disappear completely. Glidey, Samantha, Rosa. He pictured their faces. Then Ethan grabbed Dalton's final grenade. The silver-haired woman stepped back sadly. There is no return after this. Ethan nodded slowly. For the first time in my life, he whispered, I'm doing something without taking. Then he pulled the pin. The explosion tore through the giant heart. A deafening scream shook the universe itself. The eye in the sky widened in horror. Cracks spread across the dimension everywhere. The endless world began collapsing into blue fire. Run! Dalton shouted. The silver-haired woman opened one final portal. Ethan dove through it seconds before the dimension exploded. He woke up in snow. Morning sunlight covered the ruins of Black Hollow. The monsters were gone. The military was gone. The gate beneath the farmhouse had vanished forever. Claire, Samantha, and Rosa ran toward him crying. Ethan held them tightly, barely believing he survived. Then he noticed something strange. Across the distant Iowa fields, small green crops were growing through the snow. Healthy, alive. Dalton stared at them silently. How? The silver-haired woman, fading like smoke through these ruins, smiled softly. The world can still feed itself, she said. Then she disappeared forever. 1 year later, America slowly recovered. People learned to grow food again instead of depending on miracles. And deem don't eat the truth. Unlimited gifts always demand a price.